evening, welcome to Urban Horror Fairy Tales. Thank you. Oh. Thank you, Robbie. I don't know you, do I? Don't encourage him. Right, tonight I'll be taking you through my Urban Horror Fairy Tales, telling you a bit more about what happened after the happily ever after, or maybe just the ever after in some cases. So, with very little further ado, we'll crack on. I'll let you into a little bit more about the context about how this all came about as we go through. So, I haven't memorised all of these yet, but you'll find out there's a reason for that. Brady specs. Alice had an imaginary friend of whom she'd often think. She'd take her friend to the pub so both of them could drink. Now Alice would get shit-faced and her friend would get much worse. Because though she came from Wonderland, like a trooper, she would curse. She'd smash up all the shop windows, claiming to be suffragettes. And as the police gave chase, she'd cry, "You ain't seen nothing yet." Alice soon found herself up before the courts. Cried the judge, "You're a nasty girl with places for your sorts." So Alice's life had gone not quite the way she'd planned. Both she and her imaginary friend were rightfully trepanned. Brutal, I know, but it was a different time. So if you have an imaginary friend whose temperament may roam, take this little piece of advice. Leave your mate at home. And that's the tone, if we go from there. But you might find little pearls of wisdom, little snippets of things along the way you might want to take with you. Robin Hood, at about 10:30, hanging out in a bar, cruising about, but then the Sheriff of Nottingham happened to pass by and brought Rob a drink. He's actually a swell guy. Rob went to the toilets to take a leak, and he took his glass with him. Now don't think him a freak. Take a moment, stop and think. Never abandon your drink. Thank you. When I pause significantly, feel free to clap. Or throw money. The paper kind ideally, but I'll take everything. So again, not just moral lessons to learn, but you know, occasionally little bits about bureaucracy, maybe a few bits about local government. You might spot little bits of my day job sinking in if you want to hear about old buildings. It's more interesting than you'd think.
Oh no, it isn't.
I forgot to mention, yes, I do encourage heckling. But I should warn you, careful observers will note that I am a little bit deaf. We've already done that joke 3 times. Apparently. So Beauty went to live with a monster, though some would call him Beast. He had to go to the food bank though, so they could have just a small feast. For though his castle was grade 2 listed, it was in a state and wouldn't sell. It counted against his claim as capital. So he had no money, oh well. So the moral of this story is that true love really does count. Because his council tax went up with no single person discounts. Yeah. I think that was almost as good as the applause Helena got for a heckle. Thank you. Now I should explain, some of you may know, but the way these poems came about was that I was practicing improvising poetry for a show I've done in Edinburgh for a couple of years. And so I was literally just tapping these poems straight to Facebook, straight off the top of my head. They're all still there. If you do #Urban Horror Fairy Tales, you should be able to find them and hopefully not steal them, plagiarise them or make a million out of them. So that's how this came about, and all the ones I've got printed out, spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, things that probably could scan better if I actually took the time to think about it. The problem is I'm just really, really lazy. You know, and it's just too much of a fag having to try and write real material. So, we'll carry on. Brace yourselves. This one's brutal. I say brutal, sort of white middle class brutal. Pinocchio was on the streets, living the life of a tramp. He couldn't perform no more, since his legs developed damp. His thorax was now all grainy, the singing voice not a lot. Little difference between 20 B&H and a voice box with dry rot. Acrobatics required flexibility, lest his limbs be rent. But too much is a terrible thing with damp over 30%. Propelled now on a set of wheels and begging from his chair. The only thing that looked like a real man on him was the fact that he had no hair. He'd still mutter under his breath, "I've no strings to hold me down." The police, though, were less than impressed. "You're a vagrant, get out of town." Oh, poor Pinocchio, poor Pinocchio. I'll give you one of these ones later, and then I shall experiment with something a bit more improvised. I don't think any of you will have heard this one before. I can tell because it's in really small print. In fleeting moments of glory, everything seems hunky-dory. But there's another story since Snow White went on Towie. First there was the stress of nowhere safe to undress, for under the raven-haired tress, she was secretly David Bowie. So yeah, all of these came from improvisation, and someone said to me, one of my oldest friends said to me, said, "Where do these all come from?" I said, "I just kind of think them up, that's how they happen, you know." And where do ideas really come from? Well, they come from you, the audience, the crowd, you know, the wonderful people feeding my own vanity. So just to show how this works, I'm going to try and do some improvised poems while we're up here. If it's any consolation, if it dies on its arse, it can still be amusing. So, what I need a modern day situation and a character from a fairy tale. So I need people to shout something out to me. First, give me a character first of all, for any kind of fairy tale or fantastical setting.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin. Okay, good, fantastic. And a modern day situation.
Applying for a mortgage.
Rumpelstiltskin applying for a mortgage. Okay, fantastic. Now, I should warn you, fantastic suggestions. With all of these poems, and there are some here which I don't have time to do this evening, and you may not have the patience to hear all of them. With each of these poems that go on, in my head, they occupy the same shared universe. So just imagine I might have poems about Rumpelstiltskin or poems about Ruth. I can't contradict anything that I've already done or written. You might not know the trouble I'm going through not to do this, but this is happening up here and behind these eyes. Yeah. When all the wool to gold was spent, Rumpelstiltskin could no longer afford the rent. And there was very little he could do. I mean, you know, what's there for you? I mean, gold, it has fantastic value and will never, ever run out. But spinning wool is an old-fashioned thing. The craze for this has gone out. So he needed a full-time job to get the mortgage for his flat. Because telling tales like this wouldn't feed him or his cat. So he went to see the DSS. That should give you a time with the setting. Oh yes, this was very early 80s. Thatcher's time. But wait, politics will be left out for now. If there's anything there, that's a pork out. So, with all the paperwork that he had, It wasn't a lot, egad. No birth certificate or driving licence, and very little else. Rumpelstiltskin spoke to a man and said, "Oh, help! I'm a good and honest man, but with no collateral. I've got a couple of bits of gold and a spinning wheel, that's all. But maybe if you could just take pity, I could get a flat somewhere in the city." I said, "Sorry, mate, you've got me foxed. With all that's here in London, maybe a cardboard box." That'll do for now. There will be more, that's the warm-up. Puss in Boots also wore suits. But you've never heard about those. The stitching was ace, not a thread out of place, though stolen from Savile Row. Yes, the purloined suit, a story of ill repute, of Puss's criminal activity. To Puss, the real game was the guessing of his name, for he was the great McCavity. So check your books for evidence, you'll find the police file bare. You'll confirm my theory, but McCavity's not there. I believe a wise man once said, to steal from one is plagiarism, to steal from many is called research. Occasional lines from elsewhere might slip in. Rapunzel lived in a tower block. She lived right at the top. Her hair grew, as we know, and it didn't stop. It grew and grew out the door, down the stairs to the ground floor. So the council came, the doors were locked. The hair from leaving the tower was blocked. Soon the tower itself was filled. From windows and vents her hair had spilled. And then one day the hair growing stopped. Every lock away was locked. They found dead Rapunzel at the top. They can't all be funny, I'm sorry. Yes, I've been told it needs more horror. I've also been told it needs more urban, but that might be cultural appropriation, I'm not sure. Ware's quite urban though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Yes.
Getting there.
Yeah. Puss in Boots. This is probably the first of the sequels that you may hear this evening. This one gets slightly political, bear with me. Oh, I get looks.
Why do you always look at me?
I'm expecting evils. This is anticipation. Puss in Boots went to town, for 'twas the day to vote. But sadly for him the Tories won, so he built a pea green boat. With a lovely owl he went to sea. They sailed both far away. They discovered themselves a lovely land where you could be straight, bi or gay. Everyone was different colours and believed in peace and love. It didn't matter if you worshipped trees or believed in God above. Then unfortunately the cat woke up. The boat thing wasn't really true. So he built a really massive ark filled with animals 2 by 2. This too was poorly thought, and someone always wrecks it. Hang on. There was no longer freedom of movement and no escape from Brexit. What's worse, the rhyme itself or the anticipation?
Both.
I know, right? I know what's coming, which somehow makes it worse. You know? In Wonderland, the people say Alice will come to save the day. But she's not been around since her court case. She's confined herself to a solitary space. Confinement to solitary spaces. Self-isolation. I'm banning the coronavirus from tonight's topics.
You started.
The thing with that's true. Because it's all the panic buying the hoarding that's got up with the coronavirus. We've hoarded things before. Like booze and half-used virus. Exactly! I couldn't think of a rhyme for virus except for virus. Occasionally we'll get rhymes which that's like they belong in show tunes. It's
Billy Ray Cyrus.
I'm billing myself as an anachronistic funny dummy. I've got no idea who you mean. If you mean, of course, Hannah Montana. Jeez, okay. Right, okay, I better do something quick. Right, can I have another fictional character, please?
Darth Vader.
Sorry?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, Darth Vader.
Illegal fishing.
I'm actually, because we've got Darth Vader, popular culture reference, let's have Darth Vader in a fairy tale setting.
Going to Grandma's house.
Going to Grandma's house. Oh, this is awkward. I know. This is possibly a frosty one which might get bad reception because apparently Darth Vader was born by Immaculate Conception. We find ourselves on Tatooine, a land that's mostly sand. There's not much there to do but drink and shag, for life for them was bland. I know, right? Is it entirely possible that his mother therefore lied when she said that fateful night there was no one by her side? The baby, he just turned up one day, she said to her girlfriend. She was gay. But maybe she'd had a little bit on the side. But hark! I think that side might have been dark. And so it was. She told a lie about the conception to save her. But had she not, things could have been different. Her son had a red lightsaber. I did say I welcomed heckling, didn't I? So of course he had a grandma. I was hoping you'd forget. And thanks to you being here, I've now got a lost that bet. So though Vader's mum, she did indeed have a spouse, there wasn't much left out in the sands, not left of Grandma's house. Because it was their little house with a tiny steeple, it had been truly vanquished by all of these sand people. Was there one? Did they walk a mile? We know they all walked in single file. For in their robes they are not encumbered, they like to indeed hide their numbers. And when the film is ultimately made of this, you're going to think now I'm taking the piss. I kid you not, Man Alive, it'll be called Episode .5. That'll do, that's fine, we're moving on. Yeah, I have to confess I got caught up with Vader's parentage. This is the problem when you give something like this to a nerd, I'm afraid. Right, yeah.
Nice mention of Tatooine.
Sorry?
Nice mentioning of Tatooine.
Well, it's got to be in there, you know. I do actually have a little song which we used to warm up and Alex maybe never sing again. You know. Fly me to Tatooine, let me play on the Death Star. Let me see what spring is like on Tatooine and Dathomir. That's all you need to know about that one. I had street cred earlier on. Yeah, true. Captain Hook was often shook but very rarely stirred. He swung from masts and battled crocs, all of this you've heard. But less well known was his conservation work. The press gave not one iota. His job was not really as a pirate, but managing the fishing quota. Despite his nasty rep, he did much good, by God. Were it not for his careful work, there would be no more cod. But his great humility was indeed his saving grace. He never claimed to be more than he was. He just knew his place. I kind of feel like I let you down a little bit with the Darth Vader grandma one. No, you're mostly too kind.
No, we left it there.
Yeah. I'll do another quick one then. Okay, give me a pop culture character.
James Bond.
James Bond.
Daniel Craig.
James Bond. James Bond in a fantasy setting, please.
S&M Club.
Sorry?
S&M Club?
An S&M club. Fantasy setting, yeah, I kind of asked for that, didn't I?
Been there before.
With the time spent across the pond, there was a crazy mission for one James Bond. As he was entering his old age, he toyed occasionally with bondage. He left London and the terrible rains and went to Vegas, a man in chains. Not captured this time as a spy, but a nice young filly had caught her eye. And he went there with his corset elastic, trying to truss up a girl dressed in plastic. And he said to her, "Hello, my pretty. Imagine I just said something witty." And she said, "Hey, swell, you're great, but I'm afraid your accent's a little shitty." Oh, don't encourage the bad talk. "So what are you doing here? Are you from England?" "Yes, my dear, Northern England." And he had to put it there, he wasn't grand. You know, the Scotland haven't heard of Scotland. Americans, bless them, they'll assume it's all part of here. And geography to them just doesn't appear anywhere on the curriculum. Nothing rhymes with curriculum. Nothing.
You're not going there.
So he found himself in plastic heaven with whips and chains. Oh, 007. We might be edging towards something of a drinks break. So, the big bad wolf was hungry, the badger's cull at work. So he sought some benefits for endeavours he would shirk. Not intentionally, you understand, for the wolf had a reputation, known as evil throughout the land and by the press of the nation. The dole office, though, were rubbish. They didn't give a fig. If badger is your favourite dish, have you thought about pig? And so it was the big bad wolf, he never went hungry again, because that third pig used non-sacrificial mortar and the brick soaked up the rain. If you want to hear all about lime mortar and conservation of old buildings, meet me in the back afterwards. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. After 30 years, the bricks fell apart, the pigs were there on their arse, and all of their massive family were all put out to grass. The pigs had nowhere secure to live since the brick house fell. Big, bad, and hungry wolf descended, and forever he dined well. Okay. I'm going to give you a slightly more interesting historical one. Then you can go and buy some more drinks. Just while the barman's restocking their clean glasses. By the licking of his thumbs, Dicky ate the last few crumbs. Bring me more, for heaven's sake. The hunchback king did love his cake. So much so that when he died, they chose carefully where his body lied. As of course, and now we knows, 50 yards from Leicester Tesco's. Right, we'll take a quick break as long as it's needed for anyone to go and buy more drinks. We'll have more of this, we'll have more improvised stuff. One of these is going to be based on a historical event as well. So try and think of something nice because it's easy to find rhymes for. Okay, have a break, we'll see you in 10. Thank you.